Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Edog Pseudo Pod. I'm your host, Elijah Davis. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, but I won't keep you here any longer. Let's get into it. Alright, so we're going to talk about some picks. We're going to talk about last week, some things that happened. So let's just start. Penn State, UCLA, probably the upset of the year thus far. Not probably. It is the upset of the year thus far. Let's talk about it. Oh man, Penn State back-to-back losses, obviously devastating. They had the loss to Oregon a few weeks ago, and then they go into Pasadena and get embarrassed by an 0-4 UCLA team who has not led at all to any team, and now they have lost to that team 37-42. It was 27-7 at the half. UCLA came out of the gate and just dominated in every aspect. They ran for 269 yards. Penn State only ran for 157. That's really significant because the thing for Penn State this year was that they were getting both Nicholas Singletary and Katron Allen were coming back. Those were their two running backs, and they were going to be the best running back duo in the country. That was supposed to be the best running back room, and for 2 weeks straight, those two failed to produce. The leading rusher for Penn State was the quarterback, Drew Aller. He had 78 yards. The third highest rusher for UCLA had 60 yards. Katron Allen had 50. That is not something that this top, NFL talent running back field should be averaging, but they were. Nico Iamaleava had his best game of the season, 166 yards. Doesn't sound impressive on his own, but he was just dominating, playing on another level. He had 2 touchdown passes, another 128 yards on the ground, and then 3 touchdowns. The pass game for Penn State is not their strong suit. And again, they weren't able to run the ball, so they had to pass it. They came out in the second half, though, and played really good. The game ended 37-42, and they scored most of their points because they only scored 7 in the first half. So they came out with that talking. They hit really, if you talk or if you listen to what James Franklin said, and to what a lot of the players were saying, is they hit a mental block when they played Oregon that they could not overcome. So UCLA fired their head coach, and their coordinators. 2-day game plan. That was kind of the story. 2 days to game plan for this game with a positions coach. And they had nothing to lose coming into this game. So they were just like, all right, let's go out there. We want to win. We want to show how good we are. Penn State was like, wow, someone came into our home. They came in, they beat us again. They beat us in the Big Ten championship a year ago, and they came into our home during a whiteout and beat us. They just had a mental block with that game that they could not overcome, and it allowed a UCLA team that is probably not more talented than Penn State. I don't think anyone would argue that, but played so much better than Penn State, especially in that first half. So the next game coming up on that list was number 10 Alabama versus number 16 Vanderbilt. They are now number 9 and 20 respectively. This was a 30-14 game versus this was a 30-14 ending. Vanderbilt was up early. Both offenses looked good in that first quarter, but they could not quite finish. They were getting yards, but they couldn't finish. We had an interception, some turnovers. There was a fumble by Vanderbilt. They kind of did some score responses, but it was really that last drive of the first quarter where Bama got a score that really gained momentum. It was a 27-yard touchdown to Jeremy Bernard, and that's where they started to roll, and they just never stopped after that. Simpson had 380 passing yards, averaged 11 yards. Diego Pavia only 198. There was constant pressure. There was an INT that was even taken back because of a penalty that was committed. Pavia just did not look comfortable. He did not play well. and it was just Alabama being Alabama again. I mean, obviously, you know, Vanderbilt is a lot better than they were in past years, so it wasn't like a 50-0 blowout, but it was Alabama playing more like how Alabama has played, not, as dominant as, their national championship years, but more like what Alabama was expected to do at the beginning of the game. This was also a surprise to some people. It did lose me a game last week. I'll throw up my record for how many games I got right, what I got wrong. But number 9, Texas, at the time, they're now unranked, versus Florida, a 20-29 loss. Now, this is my favorite quote. This is what Steve Sarkisian said about it, and he said, take the other 135 teams and have them go play at Ohio State at the Swamp, see how they do. South Florida, they went to the Swamp 2 games ago and won 18-16. Anyway, that's besides the point. Texas had absolutely no run game. They had 52 total rushing yards, and Arch Manning accounted for 37 of those. There were 6 sacks, constant pressure, and when Arch Manning cannot have that constant pressure, he's not going to play good. He already struggles at times, and so when you put him in pressure and he's got to do all the running for you, you're putting way too much on a young quarterback. DJ Lagway, he played really well, kind of more what was expected of him at that beginning level. Not elite, but really well. 75% completions, 298 yards, and only 1 interception. Arch Manning, 55% completions, 263 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then another interception. Florida ran the ball a lot better than Texas did. They had 159 yards and 1 touchdown. Texas also could not convert on third down. They were 3 of 11 on third down. They had 10 penalties for 70 yards and a blocked punt for a safety. And then there's been this narrative the entire year about, is Arch Manning hurt? Is he not? And he did get a little dinged up in that game, went into the tent. Sarkisian kind of said that Arch got a stinger on his shoulder. That was his exact words. So we'll kind of develop to see what happens in that game, to kind of see what happens down the line. Numerous quarterbacks have said, hey, he looks like he's playing injured. So we'll see what happens with Arch Manning. Is he injured? Is he not injured? But the expectation when you are at Texas is you're going to win games. Even if your quarterback's not playing great, you should be able to run the ball, even if Florida is not, they're not a pushover team. They've been playing good against some other top 10 teams. They're not great. And even, if you go and look at some articles written by Florida, sources, teams that cover, like beat reporters that cover Florida, they will tell you they have not had a great track record in recent years at the Swamp. But when Texas, they had all this expectation coming in. They are now the fastest team to go from preseason ranking number 1 to being unranked. You can't have that. There's no excuse for it other than you are overrated. Let's talk about another, not even an upset, but another team that was ranked and has since lost. Iowa State at Cincinnati. We'll be quick with this one. It's just one that I picked. Iowa State was ranked 14th. They went to Cincinnati, and in the first half got obliterated. They ended up coming back. It was only 30-38, but it was 17-0 in the first quarter. And then it was 31-15 in the first half. That is not a good sign. Really, the only thing that was good for Iowa State was Rocco Beck. He had 314 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Everything else was really not good for them. But they also did have some injuries. I believe some defensive backs were injured. They had some injuries on the defensive line. So those things do come into account. But coming out the gate early in the game, Cincinnati just took off and they controlled the game the entire way through. So let's talk about this week. What are the key matchups this week? And we have a huge slate of games that we can learn a lot about some teams. Starting this week, let's talk about number 1, Ohio State at number 17, Illinois. Now, a lot of people, a lot of analysts, broadcasters will start by saying, hey, look at all these offensive guys, but let's actually pull away from them and talk about this great Ohio State defense. We will talk about the Ohio State defense, but I actually want to highlight the offense because of Illinois' struggles on defense. Julian Sayin has over 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith, one of the best receivers in college football, 463 yards, 6 touchdowns, and at least 1 touchdown in each of the last 4 games. That's every single game this season besides the first one versus Texas. The OSU defense now, moving to that side, they are 4th in pass yards per game, 2nd in third down percent stoppage, and 4th in first down defense. Also 3rd in total defense. That's a good defense. They have a really good defensive line, and Illinois really struggled, and we'll get into this later. Indiana, who has a good defense, but they really struggled against Indiana. They only scored 10 points in that game. It's really going to be a difficult game for Indiana if they cannot figure something else. If they cannot figure something out. Illinois' defense also gives up a lot of points. Like in Indiana's game, they allowed 69 points. That's why we highlighted the offense first. They allowed 312 rush yards in that game and 260 pass yards. They allowed 364 pass yards to USC and 126 rush yards. They allowed, and those are some good teams, but they allowed 302 pass yards to Purdue and another 151 yards rushing, and then 27 points. They have allowed 2,327 total yards on defense. Ohio State has only allowed 1,079. That is a big difference. These two teams are not alike. Now, they have played different competition, and you can get into that. You really should, in different ways. But no matter what way you do cut it, no matter what way you look at it, Illinois is going to have a really tough time, despite being at home, playing Ohio State. This is going to be a chance for Ohio State to get a statement win. They did have that, or they thought they had that against Texas, but Texas has been struggling heavily. So this could be a really good chance for Ohio State to get a statement win, despite the fact that, Illinois has struggled and they would likely not be ranked if they got blown out again, but it could be a way to kind of showcase how you play against, Illinois, who also had their game against Indiana and has shown improvement. See how you stack up against how Indiana played to them. Let's move on, shift gears to another big top 15 matchup, where this is a top 15 matchup. We have got number 8 Alabama at number 14 Missouri. Another game for Alabama in here. Are the Tide back? That's not for me to say. So this will be a telling game for Mizzou. They don't have any big wins. They played an inconsistent SC team, South Carolina. They beat them 29-20. They beat Kansas 42-31. They're not bad. They're a good team, but they're not looking great or terrible. They are second in total defense. They allow 203 yards per game. That is a good stat to have. Really, it's going to fall on, can this offense do something against the Tide defense? And Pribula, the quarterback for Missouri, is going to be a big part of that. He has been struggling recently. The first 2 games of the season, he started off with 617 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. The next 3, 586 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So they'll probably try and get the run game involved. Hardy, their running back, 730 yards and 9 touchdowns. So Missouri is going to have to run the ball, try and get Pribula into a rhythm, not turn the ball over. That will be a big thing, because if you turn the ball over to Alabama, that is not going to be looking good for you. Their defense has been on fire lately after some mishaps to Florida State. They allowed 21 points to Georgia and 14 to Vanderbilt, both teams that we think to be pretty good, at least top 25. Ty Simpson made some plays in those games. He's got more than 1,400 yards passing, 13 touchdowns, as we stated earlier. So this could be a telling game for Missouri if they can pull off an upset. It is a home game, and those are big. Home does matter. Having a home field advantage is important. But I don't think they can pull this off ultimately. This is a case where I think, again, Alabama is able to win. I guess I did not pick for the Ohio State Illinois game, so I would say Ohio State's going to win that game. Moving on to a big game, it's a weird game. The Red River rivalry. This is always a huge game, usually competitive, but this year it's kind of odd. It's always centered around how high scoring these offenses can be, and this year these offenses are kind of interesting. We know that Oklahoma has, at least on paper, the best defense in college football, or at least one of the best defenses in college football. They allowed they've only allowed 965 yards. That's the lowest. The only team to be under 1,000. They allow 193 yards a game. The only team under 200 yards a game. This will be the best defensive line Texas has faced. And again, they had those running troubles when they played Florida. Texas cannot have run struggles in this game. Their offensive line cannot be faulty. If it is, you're going to put Arch Manning in a really bad spot against a really good secondary, and that is not something you want to do. If you have to put him in that spot and he has to make throws, being inexperienced, being in this spot, he probably will throw at least one interception, maybe two, maybe even three, and that would be a killer for Texas. But this is why that a lot of people don't consider Oklahoma a favorite. ESPN has 62% to Texas. Others say Oklahoma as a +3, which is an underdog in the betting world. Some analysts will say Oklahoma, but some say Texas. Sorry about that. Had some technical difficulties, but we're back. So, where were we? Yes, Red River rivalry. So, kind of a weird one because it's a lot of defense. And we have like those betting odds. People say that, oh, it could be Oklahoma, it could be Texas. Analysts kind of mixed on this one. I'm going to take Oklahoma just because of their defense. And Arch Manning has been kind of a liability, but it's not just Arch Manning, it's the Texas offense. If you can't, yes, they've had good games where they run, and Arch Manning has been a big part of why they're flaky, but really, if you can't support your quarterback, that's a big issue. He's young, he's learning. Not everything falls on him. A lot does, but not everything. And this is a really good, not opportunity, but opponent, obstacle. This is a really tough obstacle that Oklahoma poses to Texas in terms of their defense. Not sure how Mateer will do if he plays, or how Hawkins will do if he plays for the offense of Oklahoma, but the defensive side, Oklahoma does have that advantage. This will be a really big game. Obviously, it's at Texas. I would still take Oklahoma in that. All right, so this is one I'm really excited for. I'm really happy for. This is the game of the week. We'll get to go and see game day there. You'll probably be watching that. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. I don't know. Game day is going to be there. This is number 7, Indiana, at number 3, Oregon. The Ducks and the Hoosiers. One of the biggest games at Autzen. If you just look at the numbers of the people that are playing, the numbers of the teams that are playing, one of the biggest games at Autzen. Last year, we had Ohio State at Oregon, and that was a big game in terms of, the teams coming to Autzen, and now it's Indiana at Oregon. So now let's see what these teams kind of look like. Offensively, let's look at Indiana. This has been an offensive storm. 50-plus points in 3 games, 3 of the 5 games, 63-10 win over the number 9 ranked team, who is now number 17. It's Illinois. Fernando Mendoza, who is not being heavily considered Heisman Trophy contender, but he's got 1,200 and 8 yards, which is 2 less than Dante Moore. 2 touchdowns more than Dante Moore with 16 and the same amount of interceptions. He's been on fire. They are 5th in total defense. Their defense has been also playing at a high level. 7th in third down percentage stop. 5th in total offense. 8th in their turnover margin. They've been all over the place. 2 receivers over 400 yards in Elijah Surratt and Amar Cooper Jr. Oregon has none. OU has not beaten a ranked team while Indiana has. Now, Penn State was a ranked team, but they lost to an 0-4 UCLA team, and they were dominating the first half, as we explained earlier. So they're not ranked anymore. They were ranked when Oregon played them, but they're not ranked anymore. So all of this is said, this is a hugely big offensive team. They're underdogs. It is at Autzen, one of the hardest places to play in college football. Just ask Ohio State last year. But they're underdogs. Why is that? Oregon is a star-studded team. Indiana has not faced competition comparable. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Illinois, and then Iowa. They also have not really gone on the road. They're not road tested. They went at home, they went 27, then 56, 73, 63, and then on the road, their only road game was at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa, where they played a game 20-15 against Iowa, who has a really good defense, one of the top 5 in terms of the yards they allow. But is it as good as Oregon's defense? I don't know. Autzen is a harder atmosphere to play in than Kinnick is, even though people go to Kinnick and they're like, well, this is not fun to play in. This is not easy to play in by any means. They have a good defense. Autzen is really difficult to play in. Oregon is going to spread the ball around. They don't have 1 or 2 playmakers. They got 4 or 5 playmakers that will catch the ball in the air. I mean, you got DeCorian, Moore, Malik Benson, Gary Bryant Jr., and then Kenyon Sadiq. All those guys are making plays. Moore, Benson, and Sadiq all have 200 or more yards. Bryant has the most touchdowns on the team. He's got like 196 yards receiving. Sadiq is probably the best tight end in college football right now. At least that's what most NFL prospect or analysts, draft analysts, are saying. And if you watch the tape, it's hard to disagree. He'll leap over you. He'll stiff arm you into the ground. He'll block you, pancake you. He'll juke you out. I mean, this guy is versatile. Kind of the comparison used a lot is like Tyler Warren from last year at Penn State. And Tyler Warren was really good. I don't know what it is about the Big Ten right now. They're just producing tight ends. On the defensive side, you've got Mateo Uyunglele. He's got 4 sacks, 2 batted passes, and this is important to note. Mendoza has been sacked 5 times this year. It's been 5 games, so that's like 1 sack a game, but they had 2 sacks. He was sacked 2 times in the game against Iowa a week ago. Oregon is 7th in total defense, 9th in total offense. Dante Moore is often considered one of the top QB draft candidates, despite this is really his first year starting since his freshman year. He sat under Dylan Gabriel last year, who's now starting in the NFL for the Browns. He's considered a top draft candidate this year. He's a Heisman hopeful. We're only, some weeks, not even halfway through the season. And so that means like very little. We're about halfway through the season. So that's like very little, but he's been playing at that level. That is important. He's been playing really good. Oregon has a really good run game in terms of the depth and quality of depth of running backs. They probably have the best running back in room in those terms. In short yardage situation, you got Jordan Davison. He's got 91 yards. That's not a lot, but I said short yard for a reason. He's got 7 touchdowns. D. Hill Jr. has 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he averages 10.4 yards a carry. Jane Lamar, another 230-yard rusher, another 3 touchdowns. Indiana also loves to run the ball. Mendoza, another element when you add that dimension to the offense. Roman Hemby has a 351 yards rushing. Kalen Black has 344 rushing and 2 touchdowns. If Oregon's a no-show, Indiana will win this game. Indiana's not a pushover team, but Oregon is a much higher caliber team than anything Indiana has faced this year. Last year, they went undefeated for a large portion of the year until they faced a quality team, and then they lost. That is kind of what it looks like is happening this year. I'm not going to say that's what is happening, but they are a good team. Can they be a great team? Oregon, game day's coming. They were at, they won their game. That game day was in Penn State. They are 20-13 when they are featured on game day. And you know what? I think we're going to have to make that 21-13 because give me the Ducks. I take Oregon. The Ducks are going to win this one. It's going to be an Autzen game to remember as Oregon gets its first statement win. I think the Penn State game was a statement win going in during a whiteout is obviously a statement, but Penn State kind of could not get over that. They damaged them mentally. But this is going to be a big statement win, a top 10 win against a quality Indiana team. This is big. That is going to be the all from me today. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time on this podcast show. If it's a podcast, not really sure, but I'll see you next time, or I hope to see you next time.